Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Very good morning and selamat Hari Raya Idul Fitri. Honorable Professor Dr. Ujang Sumarwan, President of the Asian Association for Consumer Interest and Marketing. My brother Dr. Nordeng Durasih, and also Professor Dr. Muhammad Fazli Sabri. Ladies and gentlemen, Alhamdulillah, and thank you very much to AACIM for inviting me this morning to share my perspective about halal industry in Malaysia as well as in the world. Topic of my presentation this morning is about halalan thayyiban for all. So what I would like to share with you is my experience involved in this halal industry from the perspective of the government, the consumers, the certification bodies, the industries, and also even the interest of the non-Muslim. Before we move on, let's us have a look at this very important principle as mentioned by Dr. Yosini, Prof. Yosini just now, that halal and thayyiban must be together. And in fact, this is the one that we have to always inform the manufacturers and also the consumers about the connection between these two halal and thayyiban. The industry must be aware of this principle. And from my experience, the big companies, multinational companies, the companies that has been established for a long time, they don't have an issue to produce, the thayyiban aspect. But for the, small company, especially the Muslim company, they are very good in the halal, but somehow the thayyiban aspect is not that what improve or advanced yet. So that's why this concept halal thayyib is very important. Halal can be defined as permissible by Sharia law, whereas the thayyib, as mentioned by Dr. Yossi, and in fact I'm sure that most of the people nowadays are aware of this thayyib, good, wholesome in terms of the quality, safe, nutritious, pure, and all the beneficial aspect of the food to the human health considered is thayyib. And whereas the third principle here, which is the haram, also very important. Haram basically can be defined as the opposite of halal, which is prohibited by Sharia law. And for Muslim, maybe we don't have any issue. Hopefully we don't have any issue with this haram, because we have been taught since at the early age about this halal and haram and so on. But for non-Muslim manufacturers, or maybe the consumers, or even whoever that are involved in this halal industry, they might have a little bit problem of this, because of the understanding of halal and haram is not that deep. That's why I think the function of the organization, Islamic body, the government, even the consumer association is very important to actually educate whoever involved in this halal industry to understand deeply about this halal, thayyib, and haram concept. And in fact, it is an instruction by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for all Muslim to consume only halal and thayyib food, as Allah mentioned in this Surah Al-Baqarah ayat 168 and 169. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayuhan nasu kulu mimma fil ardi halalan thayyiba wa la tattabi'u khutuwati syaitan innahu lakum aduwwum mubin. O mankind, eat from whatever is on earth that is lawful and good, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy. So this is why I chose this halalan thayyiban for all as my topic today, because Allah mentioned all mankind. Allah did not mention all Muslim, meaning that this halal thayyiban is fit for consumption for everybody in this world. Yeah. So and we know that today halal thayyiban become an international brand, which is very much sought after by everyone, not just for Muslim, but also for non-Muslim. Yeah. And interestingly, just to share with you, there are many what we consider as non-Muslim country championing halal industry. Yeah. So we have Brazil, Australia, New Zealand exporting halal meat and also animal-based product. We have China, India exporting, fruit, vegetables, and also active pharmaceutical ingredients. We have Japan, Korea producing cosmetics product, and then we have European countries producing processed food, pharmaceutical, even nowadays, vaccine, yeah. And hopefully the vaccine that we are getting is halal, and of course, yeah, it's very important. And we have also USA, producing grain, cereals, yeah. And we must say thank you very much to our fellow Muslim brothers in these non-Muslim countries, because they are the one who established the certification body and then help the industry to produce halal product for all of us around the world. That's why, again, the topic of my presentation today is halalan thayyiban for all. So that's mean all over the world are actually involved in this industry, halal industry. Yeah. And also when we, especially Muslim, talk about this halal industry, we must also consider these two elements. The first being the da'wah, and the second being the business. So we cannot run away from this as a Muslim, because as I mentioned just now, that even the consumer association can play a very important role in this activity, because they can also give an awareness, training course, information about this halal to the people, not just to the Muslim, but sometimes, in whatever the occasion, we also tell this to our non-Muslim friends. Yeah. So indirectly, it hopefully could be a dakwah process. And of course, the business aspect, we cannot run away from that, because as mentioned by even Dr. Ganchar, that halal has become an economy now, and this halal economy is growing very fast. Yeah. Very fast, and therefore we shouldn't miss this opportunity. As a Muslim, we should not miss this opportunity, because this halal product must be consumed by Muslim, and there are about 2 billion Muslim population in the world asking or demanding for halal product. And also this halal product, halal thayyiban product, also fit for consumption of about 5 billion non-Muslim. So you can imagine the huge potential of this halal industry in the world. Yeah. And as mentioned by Dr. Ganchar also, that the value of this halal product currently is about 2 billion. Yeah. As mentioned by Dr. $2 trillion yearly. That is for the market for Muslim. But if, let's say, the halal product also being purchased by the non-Muslim, so that means the value can be easily double up. Yeah, can be easily double up from $2 trillion yearly for Muslim, and if this halal product also purchased by non-Muslim, and the value can be easily double up, I can say. Yeah, so that's how important is this halal industry to the world. Yeah, and of course, currently, because this halal industry is moving very fast, so we have to take the opportunity, and this opportunity, can be taken by the country, because we have many countries in the world. They are also doing halal business, yeah, and can be also taken by industry who produce the product for Muslim consumption, and also by the individual. You know, we as an individual also must play a role, must take part in this halal industry. So how do we take part in this halal industry? So we have to play our role in our capacity is whoever that we are. For example, if we are academician, if we are the consumer, then we have to play the role. Yeah, and of course, another important body that should be supported by all of us is the certification body in non-Muslim countries. Yeah, we are Muslim countries. Maybe we are very fortunate because the government is very supportive to this initiative. But for our friend in non-Muslim countries, maybe they don't have that kind of support that we receive in our country. Yeah, so we have to together support them, and we should not take this as a competition. Yeah? Please, yeah? Because from my experience, when we start to compete among each other, then there is the time when this industry will collapse and will not benefit everybody. So that's why I think from my experience, dealing with the government, dealing with the company, dealing with the consumer, dealing with the academician, that we have to complement each other. Don't compete, but we complement. If we can do that, then we can, I think, bring this halal to a greater high in the future. Yeah. And from my experience also, we can do, you know, very detailed analysis or whatsoever to see where we are, yeah, in this halal industry. For me, what I can share with you is we can even just do a very simple analysis, what we call SWOT analysis. You know, we look at our strength, you know, can be country, can be the company, can be the individual, consumer, whoever. Just look at our strength. What do we have? And then look at our weakness. And then what are the opportunities that are waiting for us out there? And then the threat also important that I will share with you. Some of the components under these four SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Yeah. Example here, the strength. The strength that I think everybody should know. We have this Al-Quran and Hadith clearly say that halal and thayyiban is compulsory and is important for Muslim and also for everyone. We have Al-Quran and Hadith that we cannot deny that, yeah. And then we have this conventional law that being drawn out to help the industry, you know, involved in this halal business. And then we have this halal certification system, which is very good. In Indonesia, we have halal certification system. In Malaysia, we have halal certification system, yeah. So this halal certification is really helpful to everyone if we really study the content of those systems, yeah. And then we have human resource. We have a Muslim with the background of, you know, Sharia, economy, technology, scientists, and so on. Yeah, we have all those. And then we have government funding. In Malaysia, we have many agencies under the government giving assistance to the industry, you know, in terms of the money, in terms of the IT technology, in terms of the infrastructure, everything is there already. And also natural resources. We have a lot of, you know, animal, plant, microbe, you know, in Indonesia. Indonesia is very fertile country, sangat subur, yeah. You can see that you can plant almost everything on earth in Indonesia, yeah, and also in Malaysia, in Brunei, you know. So we have a lot of that. So why don't we take this opportunity and then really, you know, participate aggressively and seriously and significantly in this halal industry, yeah. And I just share with you the strength that we have. We have the standard. In Malaysia, we have the standard. We have the law, we have the standard, we have the manual procedure, we have the halal certification system. Very good already. So I don't want to discuss on that very much because, you know, let them do their job. We don't well much, otherwise just wasting our time. Yeah. So if you are the scientist, then you work as a scientist, how to involve in this halal industry. And then we have all the natural resources. You have plant, you have fruits in Malaysia, Indonesia, and then you have aquaculture industry. Yeah, that we can use all this to produce halal products. We have very good, what we call sometimes certain products, certain fruit called superfruit. We have superfruit that all over the world are looking for that. For example, we have snake fruit salak in Indonesia, yeah, very popular, very good. You produce very good buah salak, very sweet. I went to last time Yogyakarta. They plant huge salak tree with a very sweet taste, and then we have avocado, we have lemon, you know. So those are the strength that we have. Why don't we gather all those and then we participate, involve seriously at par or even better than the countries that I mentioned to you just now. Yeah, and these are some of the weaknesses. We have to sometimes accept that, and we have to admit that, you know, in everything that we sometimes have the weaknesses. For example, we don't have really harmonized halal standard, halal laws among the countries and so on. And I think we should settle that, handle that. And then lack of raw material and ingredients. We have all those plant animal, but somehow maybe we don't process it properly. We don't plant it in a large quantity and so on. We don't manage the plantation properly for certain crops, maybe, yeah. So those are the, because from my conversation with the industry, like pharmaceutical industry, I asked them where did they get this active pharmaceutical ingredient? Almost 90% exported or imported from overseas. We don't produce. What is the reason? Yeah, and then for cosmetic ingredient also, the herbal. We have research on herbal since many years. In Indonesia, we have jamu, yeah, jamu. But why don't this jamu can be at par with traditional Chinese medicine in China? China, they are very good traditional Chinese medicine. Yeah, they promoted that all over the world. But why our traditional medicine like jamu, like in Malaysia, we have traditional medicine and so on, are not being promoted and then converted into halal and exported to other countries. So those are the things that that we have to look into, yeah. And then low production capacity. We have the raw material, I told just now, plant, animal, all those, but in terms of the production, we are still very low, not economical. Yeah, that's why we still import. And then lack of R&D, product innovation, and also the last one that I would like to share with you really is the integrity issue. That is really the weakness. Yeah, we have, I told just now, that human resource, but somehow the integrity issue is there that we have to inform everybody. Yeah, and I will share with you some of the issues under these weaknesses. Yeah, for example, here, if we don't have the ingredient, we have the raw material, but we don't have the ingredient to produce food, the other people, the other country, you know, will develop. And we are worried that the other country will develop ingredient from non-halal raw material. That is really worrying. For example, here in one country, they are processing pig blood, converting pig blood into a protein, and this protein is being planned to be used in food. Yeah, so that is really worrying. Because why? Because we don't produce. We don't produce, and the other country will produce, and we worried that they produce from non-halal ingredients. So that is happening now, and we were worried that it will come to us in the future. So how do we handle that? Yeah, that's why I really need for us to really look together. Yeah, and also the import of the raw material from other countries, you know, sometimes they mix together non-halal meat with the halal meat, so there will be a contamination possibly occurring there. Yeah, so those are the things that is really, you know, even though we have all those strengths, still some of the weaknesses occurring that we have to tackle from time to time. And what are the opportunities that we can tap into and then produce halal product? Here are some of the opportunities that I would like to share with you. One is diverse market segment. That is really the opportunity, because as we know that halal economy is growing very fast. There are a lot of businesses activities around the world that can be halal. Yeah, I will share with you later. And then we have this technology, IT, IR 4.0, 5.0 maybe coming. And then we have this blockchain, big data that really can help in terms of the marketing, promotion, branding of halal. And then the initiative by the government, you know, government, they have agreement. So from this government to government agreement, we can, like, you know, exchange knowledge, exchange information, and even share the raw material. Like, for example, if Indonesia have this raw material, we don't have that in Malaysia, then we can get this raw material from Indonesia very easily without any really complication. Yeah. So those are the things that we have to tap into. Government to government, and then we have government to business agreement. Yeah. Even businessmen from Malaysia can communicate with businessmen from Indonesia to deal, to do the business lah. Yeah. And also the consumer to consumer. Even actually this agreement, we have also consumer to consumer, C2C agreement, where maybe you know, the consumer can, you know, whatever they produce at home, can share with the other consumer, or in terms of the knowledge, you know, the one consumer can share to the other consumer about halal knowledge and so on. And also regional business agreement. We have ASEAN, you know, signing agreement, and then we have OIC countries, and then the DEAG is the developed Muslim countries, which has quite a high number of Muslim population. We have Indonesia, we have Pakistan, we have Afghanistan, and some other, we have Turkey from DEAG, and also Malaysia, Brunei. Yeah, even though Malaysia, Brunei is not like high in population, but because of the seriousness or significant in terms of the halal industry, we are also involved in this DEAG agreement. So from this agreement, we can, you know, talk and then do business more easier. Yeah. And this is the diverse market segment that I would like to share with you. Some of them on actually the segment can be more than this. You know, we have food product, food service, logistic, finance, tourism, cosmetic, pharma, animal feed. Yeah. And the list can go on and on. So there are a lot of opportunity for people all over the world to get involved in this halal industry. Yeah. And just to share with you some of the product that we produce from our research lab, that we produce this Muslim friendly animal feed, because you know that from our investigation, some of the animal feed contain, like, you know, non-halal ingredients. And maybe for the animal, it's okay because animal can eat anything. Yeah. But for the people who handle this, if like you have animal feed contain pig, yeah, and you give to the animal, okay, but when you touch that feed, what will happen to you? Maybe you will be contaminated with this najis mughalazah, yeah? And if you didn't know that, you touch the animal feed contain pig, and then you go for prayer, for whatever, go to the mosque and so on, then everything will be contaminated. So those are the things that I would like to share with you. And also, now is the threat. What is the threat to this halal business? Really. So from here, I listed three, the threat that I think is very significant. One is the ignorance or lack of awareness. Even though we know that the halal business is huge, you know, Muslim people asking for halal product, and yet, if you notice that still many Muslims are going to, you know, places where are not clear in terms of the halal status and so on, eating the food which are not really, you know, clear the halal status and so on. Why was that happening? So we have to really look into, yeah. And then IPR, trade secret, is from my experience, you know, some product, you know, they are listed under trade secret. They don't want to reveal the ingredients, and as a consumer, you have the right to what, choose whether to eat or not to eat. If like the company say the product contains secret ingredient, so how do you know that this secret ingredient is halal? Anybody can share with me, yeah? So those are the challenge, the threat actually, because we are Muslim demanding halal, but if, you know, in some of the industry they are using trade secret and then they don't want to tell us. So that is the threat, yeah? And also the fraudulent and adulteration, the, you know, the use of undeclared non-permissible ingredient into the product is happening. For example, here, ignorant, yeah, they are selling this food additive, food ingredient without any label, without any label, and then just tell that this is a coloring agent, yellow color, green color, without any label. What does it come from? Is it halal or not? And being sold openly in the market. So we as a consumer must be aware and always ask, you know, to the seller, to the manufacturer, you know, get information. Even though sometimes the product has no halal logo, because halal logo is not compulsory in some countries, yeah. But you have the right to ask, is it halal? If the manufacturer say halal, then if you are confident, then by all means you can take it, isn't it? Yeah. So these are the things. But if you are doubtful, then better to avoid that. And another example is we have this 3-in-1 coffee example. Yeah, coffee, just a coffee, very simple product. But if you notice here, this coffee contains collagen. Collagen is a very doubtful ingredient. Yeah, we know that collagen only comes from animal. And if the animal is not halal according to Sharia way, definitely the collagen also not halal. But here, no halal logo, nothing, but mention collagen. So if the consumer are not aware, they will simply buy this. But if the consumers are aware that collagen is very critical ingredient, then they will avoid it. Yeah, so that is the power of the consumer. And also in overseas, we have many issues like, you know, pork in halal sausage, and then we have this horse meat scandal and so on. Yeah, so from time to time we have to aware, even though this issue is an old issue, but if you know, notice that there are always new issues coming up. We know that halal is a good economy, growing fast very quickly, but the issue also growing in sometime in line with the business. You know, the more business that are coming up, the more issue also will be coming up. So that's the thing that is happening. Yeah. So example here, I only recently got this, is the cereal. This product label cereal. Yeah. And we know that, oh, and also has this picture of biscuit, like a biscuit, you know, cereal biscuit. And you know that cereal is plant biscuit. What is the problem? But if you look at the label properly, this cereal contain crispy pork floss. Pork, you know, contain pork. So the consumers be aware, you know, with the labeling of the product. Don't be cheated yeah, by the labeling, or don't be, you know, you have to be aware lah. When you buy a product, don't just look at the product at a glance only, but try to look it in detail. Look at the label, look at the picture properly, and then read the label thoroughly. What does it contain? Yeah, example, this cereal but contain pork. All right, so those are the things. And of course in the lab, because I told just now that I will share with you the perspective of the government, industry, consumer, and also the scientists and so on. In the lab, we have the technology actually in Indonesia, in IPB, you know, in Malaysia, in Brunei, we have the lab that can be used to detect the presence of these haram ingredient. So we can always work together with the government and also with the industry to really uphold the integrity or the sanctity of this halal. Yeah, we have in the lab, for example, here we have the PCR technology that can detect the presence of DNA porcine very quickly within 1 hour everywhere, and then can be done by anybody. Yeah, because the technology is very simple. And in overall, what I can say that in the halal industry, we have 3 big players. Yeah, we have 3 big players here: the consumer, the government, and the manufacturer, or the halal services like logistic, tourism, and so on. And consumer is always, I like to put the consumer at the top here, because, you know, consumer always right. They are saying a very popular saying that consumer is always right. Yeah, so please use your power or our power as a consumer to like, you know, somehow or pressure a little bit of the manufacturer or the government. But we have to be careful also, or we have to be, yeah, sometimes realistic, because these 3, consumer, government, and manufacturer, has to work together. Yeah, you cannot like consumer demand too high. That cannot be fulfilled by the manufacturer or the consumer or the government, because you will be in the end losing out, because you cannot get anything. Your demand is too high, but the manufacturer cannot produce it. So who will produce for you? Nobody. So in the end, you will get nothing. Yeah, that's why even though the consumer always right, but our demand for me lah must be also realistic. Yeah, realistic. Okay. So I think lastly, I would like to share with you, especially lah for our friend certification body in overseas, yeah, because their job is very important, very significant, yeah, and they always, you know, work in their community and so on, yeah, and but very, I think very divine effort lah by them, and maybe they can use this concept. I'm sure that they already did that, like in Indonesia, you have this Jakarta Islamic Center, yeah, Jakarta Islamic Center, where in this center you have this masjid, you have this madrasah, you have this hostel, maybe you can have this shopping complex and so on, yeah. So from there, we can really, like, you know, improve the halal, and maybe the Norden can explain in terms of the Sharia aspect, if we have this kind of facility, yeah. And in overseas, if they have this, so they can, like, you know, develop the community to have better facility, because they use this halal as a, you know, as a medium for them to develop all this facility in non-Muslim country. Yeah, so at the same time they certify halal product, at the same time they teach their kid in the madrasah, at the same time they can invite the community to come to the masjid, yeah, and also maybe for Muslim tourists who like to go there, they can stay in their hotel. So it's, I think, very good concept that can be applied by, you know, by non-Muslim countries from their CB organization. Yeah, so I think that's all from me to share with you all this morning, and thank you very much, and I hope you benefit from my presentation. Thank you.